With the 125th Boston Marathon coming up in 1 week on October 11th, 2021, I thought I would take this opportunity to ask you some questions. The first question that I have is, can you tell me about your previous experience with marathons?
Okay. The first marathon I ever did was actually Boston Marathon in 2007, and I was in Iraq. I had a chance to go to Al Nazariya and try my first marathon, and it was really, really difficult. Ran 3 hours and 32 minutes, and very memorable experience. The last few miles, I was walking and couldn't figure out my nutrition at all, so I was vomiting. But it was pretty hot in Iraq as well in 2007. But I finished, and so over the last 14 years, I've definitely learned a lot from all the marathons that I've done, and this will be my second Boston Marathon, and the first Boston Marathon that I did was 2013, and I had a dramatic improvement. I ran 2:37 at that Boston Marathon, and have kept trying to chase marathons and try to improve on that time. And each time that I've run a marathon, I think I've learned a small thing that I could apply to the next marathon, and it's pretty fun. The challenge of marathoning is very rewarding.
So you said this is going to be your eighth marathon, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so has your method and training plan evolved from previous marathon experience, and if so, how?
Yes, probably the training that I program, and I have somebody look at each week, each month, and from year to year, I try to focus on only 2 really hard workouts a week, and I really focus on recovery from those workouts. So basically, if you can imagine 2 hard workouts that are really demanding, and the rest of your week is pretty much easy running. Things that are going to bring a lot of blood supply, and yeah, you got to do some pretty demanding days on those hard days, but it's really how you recover that is where those adaptations and the greatest amount of improvement really comes from. And you got to be patient.
Good advice. What lures you to run in Boston? Why the Boston Marathon?
I think if you ask most runners, they certainly have heard of the Boston Marathon. Actually, probably non-runners even have heard of Boston Marathon. It's probably the most prestigious race in America, maybe arguably the world. And so being associated with the Boston Marathon kind of puts you in a category of runners around the world.
With this Boston Marathon happening in the fall, being moved from April of 2021 to the fall, it will be a little different. But are there other protocols? Will there be changes in the protocols from previous marathons at Boston this year?
Yes, there's definitely a requirement to be wearing a mask, both indoors and in and around in preparation for the Boston Marathon. I think you can only remove your mask right before you step off the start line. And so there's less people at this year's Boston Marathon. They limited the field to 20,000, and in previous Boston Marathons, the field size is about 35,000. And then interactions, the waves of runners is like a rolling start. So they have everybody sort of spaced out to sort of mitigate some of the risks associated with picking up or spreading COVID-19.
That will be a slightly different experience, but exciting nonetheless. Is there any special thing that you do the week leading up to Boston?
I definitely try to taper a lot of the training the week of. Most most of the training's already done, so you don't want to go ahead and injure yourself. And so I try to reduce the amount of training and the intensity the last week, so that everything is pointing towards that one marathon on race day.
I'm sure you've had plenty of time to think about this, but what is your fueling strategy for Boston?
Okay, so fueling is so important, and for me, I found the best success is to try to actually take in fuel earlier rather than trying to take in fuel at the middle or at the end of the marathon. So when I say early, within the first 3 miles, I'm actually trying to consume at least 100 calories. And so over the first hour of the marathon, I probably have at least 300 calories that my body's trying to digest during the first hour. And then certainly as your body digests that substrate, you can then take in more. And so what I've found to work for me is that I use Martin's. It's been pretty good for me. I've been able to keep it down during the marathon. Although one of my last marathons, I did manage at the finish line. It did come up, but I made it to the finish line. I can't stress enough the importance of having a fueling strategy. Not only is all the training very important, certainly the mental preparation very important, but I think the fueling strategy for the marathon is probably the utmost, because there's only 2,500 calories stored in the human body that you have, and a marathon's 26.2 miles, and so you've got to figure out that delta, how you're going to take it in, and then also train your body to run unlimited fuel.
Sounds like you have a pretty solid strategy in place. Hopefully it plays out well for you. What are your goals for this marathon?
I'd like to certainly run my best marathon. I think I've done a lot of training. I'd really like to break 2 hours, 30 minutes. I think with the amount of training, both intensity and the training volume that I've put in for this marathon, it's probably been my best train up for any of the marathons. And so I really think breaking 2 hours, 30 minutes would be, at 42 years old, definitely not only a personal best, but probably one of the best that I could ever imagine doing.
Nice. What are you most excited for as you head to the starting line this year?
I think just being there, getting a chance to go back to Boston Marathon with so much that has gone on over the last really 2 years. Haven't had a Boston Marathon. And then for me, it's been 8 years since I've been back to Boston. Had really good success in Boston previously. In 2013, took 22 minutes off my marathon time, which is, I'm not gonna probably take 22 minutes off of my personal best this year, but it's an amazing race. Certainly the fans and the crowd really get into helping you run your best race. So that for me is gonna just equate to a great experience. And I just got chills thinking about what it's gonna be like going through Wesley and the Scream Tunnel and hearing all the fans that come out for that day. This year I get to have a teammate as well, which is cool. Richard Landu, he's gonna be coming running the Boston Marathon. He qualified with his marathon debut of a 2:38 back in Brookings, South Dakota 2 years ago. So we're gonna be teammates this year representing South Dakota, and looking forward to being able to wear the same kit with Pivotal Running on it, and an opportunity to represent South Dakota.
It's very exciting. We just wish you the very best and hope for an awesome marathon for you, and we'll be cheering you on from South Dakota.
Thank you.